Seven Samurai, a film that many have called the greatest Japanese film of all time. A film that spawned the Magnificent Seven remake and now the new remake by a director whose work has inspired countless other filmmakers, including George Lucas. Seven Samurai is a work of art on so many different levels. From his use of the slow motion at strategic moments, from his use of lighting to the way that different characters are placed in the background, everything is done for a specific reason and for a creative reason. And it is well worth a look if you haven't seen it. It is on Netflix now, by the way, at least on the Australian Netflix. So if you're not prejudiced against subtitles, or even if you are, give it a go anyway. If you see my other video on the original Magnificent Seven, you'll know that that's a remake, so the plot in that is pretty much the same as in this Japanese one. A small village is being pushed around by a gang of bandits, so they hire some samurais to help them defend the town. However, since Seven Samurai is obviously set in Japan, it delves more into the class politics between the arrogant samurai and the bitter, resentful peasants. This is most displayed by the character of Toshiro, who grew up as a peasant, so he hates the samurai because they ruined his village and his family as a kid, but he equally hates all of the weakness of the peasants because that reflects so much of himself. There's one particular scene where he rants angrily at the samurai, who are criticizing the peasants because of their sneakiness, and he yells at them that it was the samurai who made them that way, and he chastises them for all of their warmongering without giving any thought of the consequences of what that would do to the common man. This scene really takes on an extra level when you realize that this movie was made only 2 years after the end of the occupation of Japan. So this rant at the samurai is also a rant at Japan's actions during World War II, inasmuch as it was the regular Japanese people who eventually had to bear the brunt of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this kind of class divide is kind of mirrored in the Western version, with the younger gunslinger who hates the farmers because he used to be one, but because that doesn't have like the cultural framework around it, it doesn't have quite the same impact as it does in Seven Samurai. Another difference between this and the Western version is the farmers in this can only pay the samurai with food, with rice, and most of the samurais that are for hire out there at the time cost a lot of money. So each of these samurai who's deciding to join the Seven and help defend this village, they're not really doing it for profit, they're more so doing it for honor. Each one of them looks to make up for something that they did in the past or they failed to do in the past. They're looking to reclaim their lost honor. And the violence in Seven Samurai is way more brutal than in Magnificent Seven. You feel every death in this, even the death of like the nameless bandits. When they die in the mud, in the rain, scrambling desperately for their lives. It's nasty. Perhaps this was also a carryover from the horrors of World War II. And just like in Magnificent Seven, quite a few of the Seven Samurai don't survive. The victory comes at a massive cost. However, in this, none of the seven are actually bested with the sword. Everyone that dies is killed by a musket shot. One thing, however, I would say that the Western version does better than this one is the villain. In Magnificent Seven, while our villain is only there briefly, you do get a sense of like his view of the world and why he's doing what he's doing, and that in his head it's all justified. But in Seven Samurai, the bandit chief is just he's just there. There is a bit of referencing that he might actually be a former samurai himself, which they could have expanded on a bit. It could have been a good like contrast between him and the Seven, but they don't really. He's just kind of there. But as much as the Western version took from this Japanese one, the director of this Japanese one did also take a lot of inspiration from Westerns when he was making this. So much so that after John Sturges made Magnificent Seven, Akira Kurosawa was so impressed with that American version that he sent Sturges a ceremonial samurai sword as a gift to say thank you and good job. Seven Samurai was written by Akira Kurosawa and two of his friends who wrote the script over a total of 45 days. They locked themselves in the house, didn't take any phone calls, no visitors, and they just worked constantly on it in the 45 days. And doing that so intensely for such a period of time took its toll on their bodies, and Akira eventually wound up in hospital with roundworms, which was something that was happening in post-war Japan quite a lot. His battles in making the movie, because it was such a technical challenge and such a big-scale movie at the time, was not helped in that this was also made in the same year that Toho made Godzilla, so they were running short of money. and they were constantly angry at Akira because this got more and more expensive and kept going longer over budget. He basically almost bankrupted Toho, but he was determined to finish this film. And as he was being constantly pulled into the offices for the executives to yell at him, he got so sick of it that eventually he knew that they've already put so much money in the movie, they can't afford to cancel it. So rather than going and meeting them, he'd just go off and go fishing instead, and eventually they stopped calling him into the office and he managed to get it finished. His obsession with getting the scenes right, though, also took a toll. In some of the love scenes, Akira Kurosawa wanted to get a very special, like, glimmering in the eye effect for the actress. So to do this, he'd angle a mirror back so that it would shine light into her eyes, and after having to do many takes of this eventually damaged her eyes from overexposure to the light. But hey, that's the way Akira was, yeah? He was determined to make the best movie possible, even if he had to bankrupt a whole studio or blind a young woman. He didn't care. He just wanted his movie made. It really is a truly amazing movie, and it's got so many different subtle layers of character development. And if you want to check it out, like I said, it should be on Netflix. Definitely check it out, and don't be put off by the length of the movie. It goes for about 3.5 hours. Obviously, that's a very long stretch, but there is an intermission in the middle if you do want to split it in half and watch it over 2 nights, say. So if you haven't seen my video about the Western remake of The Seven Samurai, click on Magnificent Seven right here. Or if you want to see my review of the newest incarnation of this little trilogy of remakes, click right here for the latest one. I am Bandit, this is Bandit Incorporated. Until next time, I will see you guys in the comments.